Molly.
Hi.
There's Jim. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening. Had a little trouble getting logged in here because
We understand. Thank you. Thank you. I think we are all present, so I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the September 21st, 2020 school board meeting. We are meeting virtually via Google Hangouts. And I will call this meeting to order at 6:01. We'll take a roll call, starting with Mr. Bryant.
here.
Mr. Christensen,
I'm here.
Mr. Derricks,
Here.
Ms. Fair,
Present.
Ms. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Tower,
Here.
and Chair is here. So all members of the board are present. And with that, I will ask you to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well,
All right, thank you, everybody. And I have asked Mr. Derricks to share our vision with us this evening.
Yes, thank you. The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you, Arlen. The meeting agenda has been posted. Do we have any changes or revisions to the agenda?
No changes recommended, Pam.
Okay, nice to see you, Karsten. You got in. All right, with that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Janie will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Made by Janie, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Second that.
Arlen beat you to
Come
it.
on, Arlen. Faster.
Made by Janie, seconded by Arlen. Any other discussion? All right, this time we will start with Mr. Christensen.
I approve.
And Mr. Derricks.
Yes.
And Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
aye.
And chair votes aye. So the agenda passes 7-0. All right. The first item on our agenda then is to remember that our educational plan is always included in the board book. And so that is our reference and reminder about where our priorities are. And it also lists our strategic directions. If we remember, in the last 4 years, we finished putting together a strategic plan, which includes providing excellent educational opportunities to enhance student learning and engagement with proven instructional strategies and technology integration. So that was our strategy number 1. Number 2 was focusing instruction and professional growth on improving student learning and engagement. And that really revolved around professional learning communities and supporting our instructional staff with targeted professional development. A third strategic direction was creating a responsive, safe, open, and respectful environment across all schools and programs. And number 4 was providing high quality and efficient services through the strategic investment and allocation of resources. I think it's always important to, I know I say the same thing each week, but I think it's really important to remember that it's there and to remind us to take a look at that on an ongoing basis. And it's always there for your review. The next item on our agenda is recognitions and upcoming events. Who would like to start? Who has something they'd like to share? Janie would.
Thank you. Maybe Brecken can do this, but I just wanted to invite everybody to the home cross country meet on Thursday. It's a very good opportunity to see some great athletes, and there's an opportunity to completely social distance due to a very long course. So come out and see some kids running and have some normalcy, but this is their last home meet of the year. And we have a good group of seniors and just great athletes happening. So the boys race varsity begins at 3:30. And then 4 other races follow that kind of every half an hour. So boys varsity, boys JV, girls varsity, girls JV, but cross country is a great sport. And so come out and just cheer on and just clap.
Janie, where would you suggest people go to do that socially distanced way?
So just, if you've never been to one, they run kind of in the back of the stadium, in between the stadium and the soccer field, and kind of wander around that 2 times, and then in back of the high school. So you could be, like last time I was able to stand over by the soccer field and have no one by me actually. And then even the back kind of the high school where the buses come in and stuff, they head over there. So lots of opportunities to see kids. So yeah.
Thank you. That is exciting. It's supposed to be beautiful on Thursday. So grab your lawn chair and your ice water and come cheer on the Wingers. That's fun. And while you're up there, head on over to the tennis courts, because we have a home meet for tennis on Monday or Thursday as well, 4:30 over there at the tennis court. So that's kind of fun. Brecken, do you want to go next and share? I did ask Brecken to share a little bit about how school has been going from a student perspective, kind of the pros and the cons, things that she's hearing from her classmates. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. So online, I'm doing hybrid learning. A couple kids are doing online full-time PSEO. So it's definitely varying from student to student. It's definitely an adjustment doing hybrid learning. So for those of you who don't know, when we're not in school, we do Zoom meetings throughout the whole day. As a student, it's definitely proven challenging, but our teachers have been very accepting of that, and they've been very helpful as far as explaining things, giving us extra time out of their day. They've been really, really great with deadlines and understanding that this is an unusual situation, and so they've been really generous and being very understanding as what students we need. There are a couple of cons to doing hybrid learning, most notably being when we're not in school, we're on the computer the whole day at home, and then we have homework on top of that once we're done with the school day. So unfortunately, that means we are on the computer for the vast majority of the day. And so because we get done with school later, it feels often that we don't have much time left in the day to do outside of school activities. So for me personally, I'm in cross country, and so I get done with school, I go to cross country until about 5:45, I get home and then I do homework up until pretty much 8 o'clock at night. And so it can feel at times as if there's not much time left in the day to work on personal interests, and it feels a lot like a lot of time is being dedicated to school. But with that being said, our teachers, they, like I said, they are trying to be very understanding, and they do a really great job at explaining what we need to know and trying their best to teach us well through a computer screen. So that's been really nice as a student. There are, as I said, there are cons. But, you know, I think that this is a really unusual situation for everybody involved. And the fact is that our teachers, they are trying to be understanding with us, and they are being very flexible with our schedule. So as a student, we all really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update. Does anybody have any questions for Brecken as long as she's here? She'll be attending the meeting. Oh, go ahead, Heidi. Sorry.
Outside of sports, are there any other extracurriculars going on?
As far as I'm aware, I really only know of a few sporting events going on. For extracurriculars, I'm not sure of anything that's going on. I think that our fall play is being worked on currently. That's starting to get started up again. But outside of that, yes. This Wednesday at 8:15 a.m., we are going to be having senior sunrise in the football field. So it's a tradition that we have every year, but this year we're changing it up. And so it's going to be SOAR and Student Council. And we're going to have all the seniors gather before school. We're going to have some donuts donated by Hanish, and it's going to be a really fun time. So that's coming up this Wednesday.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's all I got for you.
Great, thanks.
So with that, we can assume that SOAR and Student Council have been meeting as well.
Yes. So SOAR is a class, and they've been meeting. And this year at Senior Sunrise, they're going to be announcing last year's book scholarship awards, because that was never announced due to COVID. And then Student Council, they've been meeting, and they've been working on ways to get students involved. And before school started, they decorated the school. And so they've been working on trying to get more kids involved and keep everybody engaged with school while we're doing hybrid learning, or for some students, full online.
Awesome. Thank you.
Brecken, can you maybe add, and I know this is just, again, part of the new norm, but, you know, I know with hybrid, you're only seeing half of your class sometimes. And as a senior, or maybe just as a student in general, you know, how does that feel? Or like, how is that working with engagement, or people feeling like school is still important?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but for me personally, after doing online school way back in the spring when COVID first became an issue, it definitely changed the way that and I know a bunch of my friends, it changed the way that we thought about school. So often I've been hearing among my peers and within my grade level that students are feeling a little frustration in the sense that they are in Zoom meetings the whole day getting lectured, and that they don't have time to just get it done on their own time. So that's been a big adjustment, and that's been a common complaint. But as far as having half the students there at a time, it's definitely different. The school's a lot quieter, and it feels weird, you know, all these people you're used to seeing, they're just not there anymore because they have a different last name than you. So that's definitely been different, but I'd say students are attending their Zoom meetings when they need to be attending them. Students, they are talking to each other in classes as far as like on the computer. As far as talking in class, it's definitely a lot quieter now because there's less of us, but people, they are still trying to connect with their peers and still trying to enjoy high school to the best of their ability.
Thank you.
Mike, did you have a comment or a question?
Doing her report. I was just thanking her for doing her report.
Ah, awesome. Anybody else for questions or comments for Brecken?
Brecken, this is Karsten Anderson. First, thank you for the report. Very well done. Another question for you. And there are pros and cons to starting later. What are your thoughts as far as the school starting and ending times?
So, for me, I'm always a person that enjoys having extra time in the morning. So for me, that's been nice, but there's also been some major drawbacks. As I've said earlier, we're getting out of school so late. There's so much less sunlight during the day, and it feels like what time that we have during the day is spent just inside and on the computers. And then you accompany that with sports. So as I said, I get done at 5:45. By the time I get home, it's 6. By the time I'm starting homework, it's 6:37. And then I'm doing homework until 8 or 9 o'clock. So it just feels like there's more negative side effects to starting later in the day, simply because there's less time after school to do to hang out with your friends, to work, to do your sports. Although it's nice having that time at the beginning of the day, it's having major drawbacks for the whole rest of the evening because we get out of school basically at 4 o'clock every day. So that's been rather unfortunate. I'd say if the times could be changed, I would say that it would be good to send out a couple of surveys and ask the students and parents. But I think from what I'm hearing within my grade level among my friends, people are not enjoying getting out of school so late during the day.
Thank you, Brecken.
No problem.
It definitely has a significant impact, I think, on kind of family time in the evening. And like you said, Brecken, working. Lots of high schoolers have jobs outside of school. And so it definitely cuts into that time as well. Or I do know a student or two that starts work at 4 and they get done with school at 3:30 and they're trying to race over to their job, which isn't what we want to have happen either. We want people to be safe on the roads as well. So it's a balancing act.
For sure. Yeah, school is getting done at 3:50. So by the time we're out of that parking lot, it's 4 o'clock. So it's definitely presenting some challenges for students.
Yes. Well, thanks again. Any other recognitions or upcoming events? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment. I have received 2 public comment letters through my email, and I've been asked to read both of them. Mr. Superintendent Anderson, do you have any to add?
I do not have any.
Okay. All right, so I will read the first one. It is from Tracy Carlisle. She lives at 370 Charleston Drive in Red Wing, Minnesota. She says, at the August 17th, 2020 Policy Committee meeting, there was a request for the contracts between Red Wing Public Schools and Every Hand Joined, Hispanic Outreach, and Youth Outreach. Has the school board been able to review those documents? My reason for inquiring is because in spring 2018, the REACH student survey was administered to the high school students without parental consent. Minnesota Statute 121A-065. Despite this unlawful task, Every Hand Joined published those results in a brochure in the summer of 2018. Why would Red Wing Public Schools share that information without the proper authorization, and what specific information in those contracts allow Red Wing Public Schools to share this data? Sincerely, Tracy Carlisle.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly respond. Holly Tower brought up the same issue at today's policy committee meeting. And so I just need to find some time to retrieve those contracts. We're also updating some contracts. And so we'll be able to show the previous contracts as well as updated versions.
Great, thank you. And then the second email I received was from Brent and Ashley Kaler. And it says, to the school board, I wish I could have been on this Zoom call. My wife and I they were busy tonight. My wife and I have several concerns on many levels with how this school year has transpired. First and foremost, if no one will stand up or advocate for the children in this community, who will? You were elected to support the children in our community in every aspect, not just follow the crowd of tyranny. Common sense and logic have gone to the wayside and changes need to be made. Concern number 1 is mental health. Where is the science or the expertise on the mental health and the toll that is taking on our kids? The cure is worse than the disease itself. For the first time, my son did not want to attend school today because he says it's miserable. The way they are treated, not able to engage with their friends, not knowing what's okay, what's not okay, not walking the right way, the list goes on and on. It breaks my heart to watch my kids who love school be lifeless. What are we doing to our kids? We are literally killing our kids. Suicides among children far exceed any deaths related to COVID. We are killing their drive, their motivation, their spirits, their minds, and their health. It's time to wake up and use common sense and logic and do what's in the best interest of our kids. It's unfair to only look at one side of this, the disease side, which the science and numbers show little to no impact among children. Concern number 2, it's more like prison than it is school. School staff are more needing to be like drill sergeants than principals and teachers, etc. We honestly have our health and wellness lady walking around lunchtime reprimanding children for not sitting the right way, not facing the right way, making sure they sit down, sit distance, not talk, making sure their masks are on, etc. This is absolute tyranny. Concern number 3, 2 of my kids attend Burnside Elementary, where the principal has taken it upon herself to make rules other schools are not implementing. I was told twice on 2 different occasions by the school staff that I'm required to wear a mask outside while picking up my kids. Second, our kids now have to wear a mask while standing outside while waiting for parents to pick them up. This contradicts the kids being able to be outside at recess with no masks. It's bad enough they need to go through the whole day with them inside. There is 0 state mandate to wear masks outside. My children and I will not be wearing masks outside. I will continue to fight for our kids. They deserve better. They deserve adults to use common sense. They deserve to be able to be in a school environment that promotes health, not destroy it. Thank you for your time, Brent and Ashley Kaler.
Yeah, and I'll just have a quick response there. I think they're referring to our implementation of different requirements in terms of social distancing, masks, and other related things. I wish we could be back to normal. I think we all do, but we are taking COVID very seriously, and that also includes requiring people to wear masks inside and in some places outside. And I know that if for example, at Burnside and some of the other schools, if parents are out of their cars waiting for their kids to pick them up, and they're not social distancing, then we do require the adults to wear masks. And if they're social distance, then that's a different story. I'm not familiar with the issue about students in the lines, but I imagine that if students are closely congregating, that expectation would be made there as well. So again, as we go along, hopefully some things will clear up for everyone in the state, and hopefully we'll have more flexibility. But we clearly are taking those safety precautions seriously.
And this is a rhetorical question for now, Karsten, but I do want to have us think about and consider what a transition plan feels like and looks like. I know in many job places, including health in the healthcare system, there are phased approaches to going back to a more traditional way of doing business. And perhaps we need, how do we know when it is okay? What are the benchmarks? How do we know when it's okay to loosen up some of these restrictions, like masks outside in a line, or parents who are standing apart but wearing masks, or, how do we know when we're ready to move to the next level? I don't need an answer right now, but we absolutely, as a school district, need to start thinking about what does that look like. I'm not saying we're there yet, I don't know that we can rely on the governor's response on that, because he's already told us we could be full-time right now in-person learning, and we've decided to take a more conservative approach, which is the right call for our district. I don't dispute that, but what are we waiting for? What is the benchmark? How are we going to know that we can move forward just a little bit and easing up some of these restrictions, letting kids talk at lunch? I do know that, high school, I hear reports from the high school a lot. So, students are not able to be as social as they once were at high school during lunchtime. That's tough on kids. Their mental health is being affected because school is very restrictive right now. It needs to be. I'm not saying it's not. But what I want us to start thinking about, talking about, having discussions about is, what are those benchmarks? How are we going to know? What's the next step? And I know we've got system all home, hybrid, or all back, but how are we going to go from hybrid to all back? I mean, we can't just flip a switch and then all of a sudden our K through 4 plan goes out the window. We can't switch mid-year. So anyway, rhetorical question. Jim, you are in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we're not normally comment during public comment period. However, you hit the nail on the head, Madam Chair, because we do need to start looking at how we're doing. It's been several weeks, I realize that, but I think the Kaylors hit some ideas right on the nail on the head, so to speak, a few of them. I have just had the same interest as to what we're going to look like down the road, how we're going to get to that, when are we going to get to that. So you hit thank you for bringing that up. I was intending to bring it up later in the meeting, but yeah, we need to start looking more than see what we're going to be doing in the next 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks, whatever. We need to have some type of an idea and a plan in place. Thank you.
Jeannie.
Sorry, just to add to that a little bit, since we're on the subject, is that, I would love to hear how the teachers are doing this. I've been, hearing feedback that the teaching styles are really hard to do. And, so I'd love sometime to hear how, kind of our teaching is doing too, Karsten. So just to kind of add to that list.
And Holly.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Are we going to be having a time later in the meeting to discuss some of the concerns and issues that we have about what's going on right now? Or is now the time to address it? Because I don't want to take any more time on this right this minute if we want to get moving.
I believe Superintendent Anderson will address a little bit more during his administrative reports.
Okay.
So should we keep going?
Yeah, I can wait till then.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that works for me too.
Okay. So school board reports is on the next item on our agenda. Any updates from personnel?
I don't think so. It looks like we might have to have a special personnel meeting, and I believe that email went out to the members. So Mike and Pam, I forget if you both replied to it, but if you can just look at that. And then maybe while I have the floor too, for negotiations, I know we're starting to get going. So looks like custodians are ready to, start talking. So I know Karsten and Lisa are trying to get some times down. So Jim and Pam, I think we all responded to that. So we will look for that.
Great, thank you. Any updates from operations? No?
Nothing from finance. We'll be meeting next week, I believe.
Okay.
I check my calendar.
All right. I know Heidi wanted to share a little bit about MSBA and anything from legislative and policy updates.
So Legislative Policy Committee meeting met earlier this afternoon. I don't know that we will have any resolutions this year from the district because we've had other priorities, and frankly, the legislative session will be focused quite heavily on funding going ahead for all aspects of the state. And I will share some more information about what I think the board needs to start grasping is what that means for the public education budgets. So I guess I'll keep rolling with that. I attended the advocacy tour, MSBA's event last Wednesday, and really they gave us a ton of information about the legislative session. It's an earlier session this year. It starts in January. It should end in May. And of course, we're doing elections, so if there's turnover, then there's people getting familiar with the job, and we're trying to address that too in our own small way here in Red Wing Public Schools. First of all, you probably all know that the state has experienced a $5 billion shift in its expected revenues. So we're at 4.7 billion deficit right now, and they expect it to grow a little bit more. I think what that means for public education finance is the message from MSBA would be no cuts to public education and hold the ADM numbers harmless, the average daily membership amount we get per student. The trade-off for that position of no cuts will be payment shifts. And no matter who wins the seats in the Senate this year, everybody's going to have to talk about payment shifts in order to balance the state's budget. Mike and I are the only ones left on the board that went through this experience with Governor Pawlenty in 2009. What it means is, in any given calendar year, this district gets 90% of its money to pay 100% of its bills, all right? And that's the typical cycle most of the time. In the Pawlenty years, in order to balance the state's budget, so the state held back aid to schools so that the budget numbers would look better for the state, and we went from a 90-10 split to a 60-40. So that would be like in your personal checkbook, if you were only getting 60% of your paycheck to pay 100% of your bills, you can see the problem. That can trigger a cash flow issue. So we'll be looking at that, I assume, in finance next week about, what does that look like? What are the numbers? I can give you a thumbnail sketch of what that means from a state perspective. For every 1% of money they delay us, the state experiences a $100 million benefit to the state budget. So and that math is linear. So if you start looking at an 80%, that's $1 billion saved for the state. If they're only giving us 70% of our money, it's $2 billion saved for the state. You can access some of this presentation information on the advocacy tour under advocacy drop down on the MSBA website. There's another shift also, property tax shift. It's not as linear. But for every 1% of a property tax shift, it'll save $14 million in the state's budget. A 10% shift would save them $150 million. And if they come in just under 50%, it's just under $1 billion saved for the state. Again, you're going to be facing this, whoever's left on the board and the new folks, come this legislative session. So understandably, I think our focus is going to be a lot on what's ahead. How do we understand it? How do we help our staff understand it, our public, and then have those conversations with our legislators? We are tentatively setting aside a meeting with our legislators, both whoever gets elected. We're going to send all of those folks a save the date for December 21st at 4:45. So that would have been the usual Legislative Policy Committee meeting, and we will cede to the legislative meeting on that. So what we've done in the past is, and we'll have more information coming, so I won't go all through that, but even though we're not writing resolutions, we will have a platform for Red Wing Public Schools priorities that we need to communicate. I would like us to give the student school board members a little bit of a platform to kind of have some interaction, part of leadership development. How do you intersect with legislative folks? And then we usually have allowed time for the legislators to articulate what they see as priorities, what's on their agenda, and what do they see going ahead. So I know it's not good news, but I think we have to face reality, and I just wanted to introduce some of that information tonight. The other piece that the policy committee was made aware of, and that we also spent time on Wednesday last week, was the Minnesota Department of Education School or Education Finance Working Group. This district has a real advantage in that Sherry Johnson is one of the co-chairs of that working group. They have been meeting for about a year. They have a couple more weeks before they finalize their report. It is a large picture view of how to change education and finance in Minnesota. And two of the big pieces, and Sherry spent some time with the committee this afternoon kind of going over that. First of all, you should know that it's about simplifying the education formulas. Second, so a lot of little different categoricals will be rolled into a general education fund. And then fewer categoricals. Categoricals, to give you an example, would be, oh, I'm losing my paperwork here. Literacy aid, transition aid, equity aid, all these different pieces would be basically bolstered into one. It's a huge conversation. It does have a price tag. Of course, this work was started before anybody knew COVID was in the offing. So you're going to hear that. That's probably going to be a big piece of what's presented at the legislature coming up the next session. There are some excellent pieces in it that would benefit Red Wing, such as access to QComp dollars, simplified early learning funding, long-term facilities maintenance pieces, safe schools revenue, addressing that, and that partially addresses mental health. So I just wanted to let the board know as an introduction tonight about what some of those things, the big conversations are coming ahead. Some of the policy issues, so not the funding side, but the policy side. Probably the biggest issue coming before the legislature again will be that piece about constitutional amendment. It has to deal with how the state is responsible for public education. Right now, the language that is there is from the original document in 1857. So this is new language proposed by the Federal Reserve Board chairman here in Minneapolis, Neil Kashkari, and retired former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice Alan Page. Was introduced at last session. It's a huge conversation in education. There's supporters, there's concerns. I'm going to recommend to you that today I found a good brief piece from Minnesota Rural Education Association, MREA. We are members of that education advocacy group, but we don't spend a lot of time interacting with them, but you all get emails, or you should be getting emails from them. So if you search on their website, you will find a good brief about the constitutional amendment. It gives you the proposed language, the original language, and it also provides some really good links so you can get some more background material on that piece. MSBA, I'll be frank, has some reservations about how this plays forward. We understand and recognize the intentions. If you access an article by Professor David Schultz, it's in the link on that MREA document. I think he lays it out really well. And so I encourage you to read up on that before the legislative session so you can start getting familiar with what that conversation is. Policy issues coming forward are trying to ease the substitute teacher shortage. That was ongoing, and it's obviously become worse in this environment. There's a piece on private duty nurses, which didn't seem to be a big deal, but I think it has a lot of implications, and there's already a bill in the hopper for that. Pay attention to the conversation about the Minnesota State Auditor. They want to audit the school districts now. I don't know if that's a good idea or bad idea, but you need to be aware of that. And then they also filled us in on some information pieces. So the only other thing I want to report to you is there will be an election for my director's seat at the MSBA Leadership Conference, and there are already interested parties. So I think that speaks well for Southeastern Minnesota that there are a number of people who are interested. The delegate assembly I don't know if it's been widely reported, but it will be virtual this year on December 2nd on Wednesday. And that's something that me from this board, I'm the only one invited to do that. But it might be giving us a hint as to the leadership conference might be virtual also. So I don't know what that decision is yet. It's a huge one, but just giving you guys a little bit of a heads up. So I know I spoke a lot, but if you have any questions, feel free to contact me to get more information. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Interesting on the auditor, I'll start there first. The counties had that for years,
Right.
and the legislature passed a law finally to allow us to go out and get a private auditing firm to audit the county books. My recollection of when the state did it, it's not solely this, but it's a revenue source for the state. They can come in, charge whatever they want, put much time in it, and you pay the bill. Whereas we can go out, most places go out and get bids and find out what the audit is. This one, so be cautious of that. Be aware of that as you're going forward in the discussion.
I agree.
So,
yep.
And the second one was, I was on the county board back in 08 and 09 when Governor Pawlenty did cut the aid. Schools suffered more because they're so more dependent on state aid than the rest of the government entities, but the counties got cut too, or delayed shift. And so you had to have dollars in hand to cover that, because we found out early December that the December payment wasn't coming. Comes twice a year, May and December. So when you got 11 months done, how do you make that up without dipping into your reserves? So we need to be cautious of that, because we're going to have to probably face it down the road with it, with having some reserves on hand. At least the good thing here, if there is a good silver lining, is we're knowing a little bit in advance than our fiscal year comes up the end of June, whereas the counties and the cities are at the end of the calendar year. So bear that in mind, that we're going forward, that state, like I said, schools are much more dependent on the state aid than the rest of them, but they all felt the pain. They all got part of that attack.
Yeah. And payment shift is painful, but it's better than the cut. So at least it's delayed payment, but last time it took 3 years to get back to the fully restored funding.
Right.
And so just, again, be prepared. Yeah.
And we're seeing the tax revenue, you hit early on about the state tax revenue is down $5 billion.
Right.
Those are local taxpayers that aren't, also some of the taxpayers of businesses that aren't seeing the revenue coming in for their product will be affected on their property tax rolls, payments come in November or whenever it is here, coming up October, November, when they make their payments. And so let's be cautious of that, because that might hit more closer to home around the state, not just us.
Yeah.
All right. And we've got a bit of a reserve, but not as much as we would like to have. But luckily, we've been building that up over the past several years. But we have to be very careful, like everybody has said and everybody knows. So, yeah, thanks, Heidi.
Cautious.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi, for sharing that.
Arlen, your name is in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little update on Goodhue County Education District. I don't know if I reported this before, but we'll be meeting again on Thursday this week. But when the new building was built, their bonds were issued at a 5.62% interest rate. And they can call those, or whatever the wording is, and reissue those bonds. And if everything goes as planned, there will be a resolution authorizing the sale of bonds to redo this, which could happen here in September and finalize in October. And if this goes through, and if they can get a 2.5% interest rate, which is a possibility, and it depends on the sale date, that would be a total savings of around $973,000 over the next several years to the Ed District. And that would translate back out between all the member districts. So I did check on our own district and there was not any bonds that we could call at this time to do our own, but when the timing's right, maybe that'll be a little bit of a blessing with times the way they are, if interest rates drop and we can save some money in some areas. But I just want to put a heads up on the education district is going to reissue their, or do whatever they want to call this redoing of the bonds. I think they call them COPS, and get from a 5+% interest rate to hopefully around 2.5. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Arlen. Jamie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give a little report update on the LMC committee. We have a lot of hard decisions to make with healthcare right now, and probably doesn't surprise anyone that rates aren't looking very good. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew we were deep in discussions and really making an effort to reach out to all of our groups where we might have some different effects due to just the district's contribution with healthcare. So really hard decisions, but last week we had some in-depth interviews with each of some providers and their bids, and we're able to ask some really specific questions. And we have a great committee and great teachers union and other reps that know a lot about insurance, and now it's just going to have to be some decision making coming down the line in the next couple of weeks. So let me know if you have other questions. I'll kind of leave it vague that way, but it should be coming in early October, but the numbers are not looking good, of course. So
Thanks for that heads up.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Janie, could I just reach out to you on the LMC committee? LCM
yep.
committee?
Labor Management
on the
Committee.
retirees. It's been a disaster with this alerts and all that. I'll reach out to you and let you fill you in on some of that. Information is not being sent properly, incorrect information. So I'll share that with you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I need to step up, and I've heard the opposite. I've heard a lot of positive comments about that, and I know a lot of calls have been made to our retirees. So, if you have concerns, Jim, feel free to share with the HR department and me as well. Janie too. Obviously, she's on the LMC, but I've heard a lot of great comments.
Yeah, I've heard we got one lady and one employee got dipped twice, and then she can't get her money back. So I need to talk to you about it, and I will. So it may be some good things on it, but there's certain things that aren't working very well that need to be addressed. So I will reach out to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. I think we all want systems that work the best for our employees and our retirees. So that's a conversation we can always ongoing have. Just FYI, I know that we're all able to still hear each other, but everybody is pretty much frozen on my screen. So hopefully that's not an indicator of bad things to come, but we'll keep going, and unless there's some major glitch that happens. Any other committee updates?
Pam, just as an FYI, I can see and hear you. So,
Okay.
At least on my screen, it's fine.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Well, with that segue, Superintendent Anderson will put it over to you for your administrative reports.
Great. There are two parts to it. First, just kind of a quick summary of some of the more recent happenings, and then the implementation of the education plan. So I'll just quickly go over the recent happenings. Just a reminder to everyone that we are paying substitute teachers $200 per day through September and October. We need substitutes, and we will definitely work with you to make sure your application is processed through Teachers on Call. We also have a significant need for special education assistance. We are short, and this is creating a lot of issues in our schools. So if there are people who are willing to, have passion for working with kids and want summers off and some other great benefits of working in our school system, I hope they contact us as soon as possible. We've been closely monitoring the need for some additional teachers. Our online only classes in first and fourth grades are fairly large, and so we're looking at different options there. Also, we have quite a few fifth and sixth graders in online only, and so it's to the point where in some classes there are more participating in online only than there are in the physical setting. And so we're also looking at options there. I know the administrative team has been kicking around possibly shifting some people around. The only thing is that we want to be flexible so we can bring kids back to full time as possible. And we don't want to do something where kids are switching schools and all of a sudden we have to be more restrictive, and so then they're coming back to the same schools, those kinds of things. But the elementary principals are looking at that very carefully. Don Wettern did some work on our COVID plan for school board meetings. And right now our thinking is that Twin Bluff Auditorium would be the best place for it. Easy access to the public, and doesn't have the same scheduling conflicts that we hope that we'll have at HUVDA as we get band and choir concerts going again. We still need to look at some technology options to make that work without feedback, but we are working on that. As an FYI, the State High School League did vote in favor of starting football and volleyball starting in October. So Paul Hartman is working with the conference leaders in terms of setting up schedules for those two activities. Kind of related to that, State High School League announced that they are significantly increasing school bills this year because of COVID. You'll see that we'll be paying an extra $9,000 this year to participate in the State High School League. We've already talked a little bit about some of the data practice agreements as far as working with non-school entities such as Every Hand Joined, Youth Outreach, and Hispanic Outreach. And so I'll be taking some documents to the policy committee, and then I'm sure we'll be talking about the school board level within the next month or so. And one thing I want to keep stressing: we need families to fill out the free and reduced lunch application. Even though meals are being provided at no cost through Christmas and maybe longer, we need those forms filled out because those forms determine compensatory revenue for the school district and some other revenue sources. So if we have fewer kids filling them out, we're going to get less money in the general fund. The other advantage is that someday the free food program will expire, and we want our families to have those applications on file so they don't go without food for days or weeks. So we encourage our families to fill those out. The other thing has to do with the implementation of the education plan. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through every section there, but I did try to break it down by strategic direction. Just talking about the different things that we've been doing since July 1st, so about 2.5 months. Feel free to read that at your leisure and let me know if you have any questions about that, and I'll refer you to the right person. And then also there's some information about your expectations for me in the superintendent evaluation that was kind of in addition to the strategic directions in the education plan, as well as some information about our equity initiatives. I know that's going to be a big topic throughout the year, and so we thought we'd have a section on that. I won't go through those now, but feel free to contact me at any time.
Holly.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to say really quickly on the pairs that we need right now for special ed. We had a long conversation about this in the spring when we were cutting people. And it was very upsetting to a lot of people that the jobs were going to be cut. And then there was concern about special ed pairs maybe not being cut. But the projection was we were going to need people. So I just want to bring it up to say that these things are not okay. Like, we discouraged a ton of people in the spring, and now we're asking for their help again. And it seems to be this constant, pairs are the first to get cut. Now pairs are the first to be hired. Pairs are the first to get cut. And it's really, it's unfair, and it's an emotional thing for our paras and for our students with IEPs to have to experience that. So I just wanted to bring that up right now. And then I have another question after that, but I can let Jim go.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Anderson, you mentioned something about the high school league, and I see Mr. Hartman's on here too. Was asked here recently, high school leagues looking at drastically increasing the percentage contribution to this that the schools need to pay because of the fallout from the tournaments that never produce revenue. What did we pay last year, and what are we projected to be paying or going to have to pay for the next invoice coming from them? Hello, can you hear me?
That was a good question. Who can answer that?
Okay. Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. We normally pay around $5,000 for the high school league. This year, our bill will be just over $14,000.
And we have no say in that. We just get charged whatever they deem necessary.
Paul, can you answer that? Do we have any fight back on this?
Well, I can speak a little bit to it. It's been a rough couple of years, and so the league is looking right now at changing the ways that they raise revenues for state tournaments, for advertising, those types of things. I would think of it, we are going to get paid back over the years after this one-time sum, is my understanding. I tried to think of it as a stock that we're going to get some dividends back once they're able to recoup some of their losses from the last couple of years. There's no budget right now for state tournament funds this year for rental of facilities, etc. So it's they were in a tough spot, and they've done a pretty good job of outlining their future plans, but it's hitting all districts right now in different capacities based on your enrollment and based on the number of students you have involved in activities. And certainly it was a tough hit for all districts. We're not the only one taking this right now, but we do expect to recoup some of those funds in the years to come.
Okay. How do you recoup them? Just in lower payments, or dividends come back? How were they projected on their plan that they presented?
My understanding is by changing the way that they are raising money for state tournaments, by decreasing some of their costs for those state tournaments, by not producing printed programs, going the digital route, by lowering the fees that they pay at some of the venues. If you look around the country and even within the 5-state area, that the venues that are offered for state tournaments are next to, I mean, they're off the charts in terms of the student experience throughout the state. They were not, I don't think they did this blindly. They know that they've made some mistakes and need to make some changes to get better. And as member schools, certainly we don't like to take that hit. But it's, we're just going to have to look at ways that we can continue to support the league as they continue to work for us in a lot of different avenues.
Okay. Well, I'm glad they're looking at it. I mean, there's no doubt that, but I think hopefully they've looked at inside, beside how they're going to do the tournaments, look inside how they can see what their costs are too. I'm hoping that's the case. Doesn't sound like it, but I could be wrong. Thank you.
No, I think so, Jim. I think so. And I got to be honest, I haven't looked at all the finances of the league over the last few months. We've been more focused on trying to get kids safely out on the courts and fields and in our theater programs, etc. I do know that they've trimmed their staff, and just like everybody else right now, whether you're talking about teachers, league staff, private employees, everybody's trying to do a little bit more right now, and I think they are. I think their intentions are noble, and I think that we'll see continued transparency from the league, even though this did come as a shock. I think that we'll see continued transparency as we move through this process.
Well, we look forward to having more down the road. Thank you, Mr. Hartman.
Heidi.
So I have some more to add to that conversation. MSBA had a special meeting in early June, and I did warn the board that your costs were going to go up because the model they've relied on for years is not working, as you know, and for several reasons. So they have cut 4 of their staff, so that's about 17% of their staff. The cost of venues has risen, even though we get generous donations and discounts, the costs still go up. And they've tried to keep the ticket fees flat, but that also meant they're absorbing $3 to $5 like of a transaction fee or some other piece that the Minnesota State High School League owes the venue out of that ticket price. So while they've kept the ticket prices stable, those fees have increased for them. So that's another way the revenue side wasn't working. And then, you know, like here's an example, and I'm not saying which is right or wrong, but so people really want the big venue experience because Rochester Civic Center offered some low rent or free space to conduct some tournaments, and families surveyed said, we don't really want that. So even though it was a cost-saving measure for the league altogether, the families wanted the experience of, you know, going to the cities or the X or whatever. So again, when you had something that was really low cost or free, but the families wanted this, there's a price tag to that. And so they've been struggling with how to meet that. And then also their sponsorship package has changed drastically. So like one of their big sponsors had like a Minnesota guy here. And he's like, well, this is the way you do this in Minnesota. You support kids, you support their activities. And so he would take corporate funds and help that side of things. Well, now they've lost that Minnesota person, that Minnesota connection. So that sponsor really isn't interested. You know, if they used to give $45,000 in the past, right now they're thinking $15,000 sounds better to us for spending that money. So they aren't getting the revenue that way to sponsor the large venues that families seem to want. So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces in play here. And so I just wanted to fill you in a little bit more on that. So, and they are under new leadership. They have a new executive director, and I think they were open about saying the way we used to do business isn't the way we can do it going forward. So just pay attention, because Paul's right, and whoever our league rep is, you know, there are going to be changes coming. I don't think this is the last of them. So just keep informed, I guess is what I'd say. And also 2 MSBA directors sit on the Minnesota State High School League board. So I always get a league update every board meeting I have with them. Some of it's just regular stuff, but this is a huge shift in how they're doing it. So I just wanted to give you a little more information about it's change driven, and I think it's going to be for the better ultimately, but it's a lot to take in. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Holly.
Yeah, this question was for Paul. Do you see the fees being impacted by this in the future? Student participation fees?
Good question, Holly. I haven't looked at that yet. I think we're going to kind of see where we're at after this year. Obviously, we'd like to keep our fees stable, if not lower, if at all possible. As you recall, we did lower our middle school fees last year from $175 to $100. And our goal, regardless of that fee, and I realize, Holly, you may not like this answer, but we do always offer the scholarship and the waiver. Not all students choose to come in and fill that up. That is always an option to get rid of any barriers to participation here in Red Wing Public Schools.
What about, are you still doing no, you can't. That was my question about all the sports stuff, because somebody said, are you going to talk about sports tonight? Like, who gets to attend? Because I was going to say, if your student, you pay for the membership fee or the fee, then the families get to come free. But have we talked about what that's going to look like for fans? But I don't know. If
Are you talking about football?
Yeah,
and volleyball.
I don't know if this is the time to talk about that or not.
Well, it certainly can be. As the way, and I guess this is nothing official, but the way I interpreted the meeting today was that there will be no fans for volleyball. That's the way it was interpreted. It was nothing official, and that statement will come out later this week. We're looking at streaming options for our parents and for our fans right now for volleyball. And football will act much like outdoor event soccer and cross country with that minimum of $250. The Big Nine Conference made a decision for soccer to have 3 passes given per athlete to guarantee them right to enter. That might look a little bit different for football. It's still being worked out, obviously, after the announcement here today, because football rosters are a little bit bigger than your typical soccer roster. So the goal is to allow up to 250 people in, but yet even if you cannot get in, we will find a way to have that that game or that match be visible to somebody, whether it be online or in some other capacity.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
Mike.
Yeah, thanks. It's an interesting situation to be in. It sounds, Paul, more like they're backfilling with this payment than they are going to be doing anything else. And I understand that. Maybe the new manager in charge thought that it wasn't being managed very well, so he's hitting us up. I suppose we won't know what our fees will be, what the district fees will be for a while anyway, until the new year, I suppose. Heidi, thanks for that a great overview of what's going on. It was really in the weeds and a lot of detail. It kind of goes to show that when I was in the with the community education board on that, we had not raised our participation fees for years. And then we raised the fees and everybody's like, what? So we decided we need to raise the fees incrementally all the time. And people expect so much and they expect it for very little. It's a huge issue right here. This is illustrating it, but it's everywhere. And people need to pay the price for these things that they want to do. If they want to have a stadium event, they need to pay for that. You can't have free attendance for a big stadium event and what are they doing playing in Viking Stadium anyway? But anyway, it's a good illustration of the problems that we have right now of people with high expectations and not a low ability to pay, want to pay what they're expecting. So, but anyway, so we've been raising our prices incrementally as much as we can, and I think that's the right way to go about it. It's Red Wing has been thinking for the last several years, and we need to keep doing that. This is a big hit, but I suppose we'll take it and we'll move on from there. Thanks, Paul and Heidi and Jim and Holly.
Arlen.
Yeah, I assume we really don't have any choice in this matter. If you're going to do school activities in the state of Minnesota, I have not heard any alternative to being a member of the state high school league and paying whatever they ask us to pay. And that seems, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't comment anymore on that, but I mean, it's pretty much, we got a representation from our area. They decide what to do. We have to do it. Our only alternative is not to have activities in our school. That's the way it looks to me. The second thing is, I'm just going to say it. They're talking that we're going to have football and volleyball. I don't know if the board wants to have a discussion on it or not. You know my position on it, and I'm just going to leave it lay there unless somebody wants to bring it up. So, thank you.
I think at one point, two comments that I'll make. One is, it is a big pill to swallow going from payments of $5,000 to almost $14,000 in 1 year. That's, 3 times what we usually spend. So that's a big pill to swallow. But like you said, Mike, we're going to have to do that if that's the price we have to pay for kids to be, in activities. The other piece is we need to come back around and talk about and I don't know if this is the right time to do it or not, but we need to figure out how to approve those additional coaches. In our previous meetings, we've had fall sports coaches verified, but approved upon, voted upon, but they did not include football and volleyball because at the time we voted, it was fall. It was a spring sport. So, Jim.
You might be right, Madam Chair. Thank you. But I thought we did hire football coach with the fall and possibly even volleyball with the fall coaches. Mr. Hartman can
yeah, you're both right.
in.
Actually, you're both right. We approved the head coaches, but just because the head coach is a more public position, so both Coach Fryer and Coach Russian were approved at that meeting in August, but we did not approve the lower level coaches. I can tell you that we're working on that list this afternoon as we found out this announcement. So, I don't know if we want to approve it in 2 weeks or whenever the next meeting might be, but practice is slated to begin a week from tonight. So on the 28th with competitions beginning October 8th and October 9th, respectively, for volleyball and football.
Yeah, I guess just commenting on Arlen's comment, I guess by passing the head coach thing, we actually went ahead and approved the head coach for the program and event when it goes. So I don't think it's even a discussion anymore at this point. Just bringing back the extra coaches that are necessary to have the program run at the level it needs to be. Thank you. Or do we even do the assistants, or we just do the head coaches? I don't know.
We usually do the assistants as well, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We like to do all of the coaches.
Janie.
Mr. Hartman, while we're on this conversation, I have already had a couple people ask me about that kind of spring season, how it was going to be very different for the later spring sports. Did you get any guidance on that as far as tennis and track and softball? If that's going to go back to their norm? And maybe that's for the future if you don't have it yet.
Good question. There's been many discussions, some of which I've been a part of, some not. I have some ideas, but nothing official or has been, they haven't come out with that at this time. They're still waiting to determine actually the winter seasons, and that's coming up here shortly in early October. So I think the move today would give you the indication that those typical spring sports would fall in line with where they've been in the past as compared to the potential July dates that were thrown out there a month ago, but nothing official at this time.
Thank you very much.
Anything else for the administrative reports?
Do we have an enrollment update, or is that coming later?
Jackie could give you a summary of the enrollment update now if she has that available.
Last week our enrollment was 2,584 students, or 2,548 students. Sorry about that. I transposed the numbers. Our budget was 2,584. Just to give you some perspective, we ended last year with 2,703. So we're down 155 from the end of last year. Just looking at our difference from our graduating seniors to our incoming kindergartners, there's a difference of 40 there. There is another 71 change in the high school numbers. We have not dug into it deep yet, but we'll be working on that this week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that meeting, we said down 130 students?
Correct.
Is our projection?
We are down 36 below our budget projection right now.
We got some adjusting to do. When would I don't know, are we going to be adjusting right away? because we knew enrollment would be uncertain, and I'm just wondering our typical, where are we at in the state report is like mid-October.
Yeah, usually we get 2 months of data before we try to decide what we're going to do with the revised budget, is our typical process.
Right. Okay, deal with the facts. Thank you.
Anything else under administrative reports? Arlen?
Yes, thank you. If I heard Jackie right, our kindergarten enrollment numbers are down around 40 students. Do we know if that number is way below our projections on kindergarten? I'm thinking in my mind that with COVID the way it is, we may have some parents holding students back for a year if they have that option at kindergarten time. I don't know if that's true or not, but as you look in your data, I think we should consider that. Sometimes it's an option to hold your child back going into kindergarten for an extra year.
Actually, Arlen, can I clear it up? Our kindergarten numbers are actually only 3 under budget. The 41 difference was from our graduating seniors last year. We had a large class of seniors graduate, around 218 seniors. And then we only have 177 incoming kindergartners to replace them.
Right, but the last couple of years, we were over what we were anticipating coming into kindergarten, weren't we? We had to add a teacher, and at least one year I know we had to add a kindergarten teacher at the end because they kept coming and coming.
Yep, typically we estimate 190 for kindergarten. So we took 10 off of that for budget this year at 180, and we're at 177.
And it doesn't, that's what we got for this year, but we may see it jump next year, maybe not. That's my point.
Yep.
Right. As long as COVID's not involved, I'm pretty sure it will jump next year. Yeah, we took a lot of students out of the equation when we put out our budget. So, but yeah, actually, I have a question. Talking about trying to go back to school on full time every day, and we are currently short-staffed now. Wouldn't it be harder to go to a full time? Do we have enough staff to do that? As of this moment, I mean, we can anticipate and try to hire. I mean, and we're not going to, anyway, I won't go into that, but do we have enough staff to flip a switch and go all day, every day?
Yeah, I think the way we set things up, the short answer is yes, generally. There may be some pockets where we need to do some additional hiring. Again, it comes down to a lot of the special education teachers and special education assistants and how that all plays out with their particular IEP. So we'll be working with Sonia and Sherry to see exactly what that would look like if and when we go back to in-person. By far the cheapest option is distance only because you don't have substitutes, you don't have, some of those incurring costs. But if we want to stay hybrid or in person, then it's going to cost us a little bit more.
Okay, and there's a shortage statewide of everything right now, I'm sure. But even before COVID, there was a shortage of special ed teachers and substitutes across the board.
Yeah, we're seeing very few applicants for our positions. There's some exceptions, like with custodians and maybe some other areas, but as far as teachers, special education teachers, special education assistants, it's been a bit challenging. Now we just hired 2 today, or we offered employment today to 2 assistants, and so I think the more we get the word out, the more people will take a look at what we're offering, and I think we'll get some more applicants, but we need to be really aggressive with that.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Superintendent Anderson? All right, seeing nothing more on that, we do have the consent agenda up next on our agenda for the evening. Does anybody have any changes to the consent agenda or anything they'd like to pull?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if I want to pull it or what the protocol is. I have a question though for Mr. Anderson. Can I do it that, or do you want me to pull the item?
I believe oh, go ahead, Carson.
Yeah, usually we pull the item even if there's just a question.
I'll pull the new hirees then, please.
Okay. So we'd like to pull number 3. Any other items to pull for right now? So then I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 3.
So moved.
Second, Janie.
Okay. Moved by Jim, seconded by Janie. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote, starting with Mr. Derricks. Sorry about that. Ms. Fair?
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the consent agenda minus number 3 passes. Okay, Mr. Bryant, your question on number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last consent agenda and others, we discussed the steps. They're all over the board on there, but I don't see any steps for the new hirees on the consent agenda.
Yeah, my apologies for that, Jim. Our intent is to add steps for each of the new hires, and we neglected to do that in this case. So that was our fault.
I didn't know if it was a result of the question or so. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, no, that was a mistake. Although I'm glad that you pulled that item because Chris Clausen is listed there as a building nurse, and my intent is to provide her licensed school nurse wage because she's been significantly helping Joni in the transition, and really she's been acting as a second licensed school nurse. So if you're amenable to that, I'd like to change Chris Clausen's designation to a licensed school nurse, just so that we can make that wage change.
Sure. If you could also send out an email to us what the steps each of the employees on those listed, what their steps are starting at, please.
Yeah, we'll send it to board members as well as you know, the like the newspaper and our communications group. So we'll get that emailed out.
I'm not asking you to do anything not right. Just send out the email.
No problem.
Great. Any other discussion on number 3? Then I'm looking for a motion to approve number 3 of the consent agenda.
So moved by Mike.
Moved by Mike.
Second by Janie.
Seconded by Janie. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, then we will go ahead and vote on the consent agenda number 3 as presented. Ms. Tower, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Mr. Christensen.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So number 3 passes 7-0. Okay, we have a resolution accepting donations and grants. Superintendent Anderson, I'll turn that over to you.
Hold on, I need to find my list here.
Well, it's a very significant list.
It is, and I want to make sure we don't miss something.
Right.
You know, Pam, I'm looking for my paper copy. Would you mind going over that list of donations for me?
I'd be happy to. There's not a dollar amount, but Marthine Bang donated 62 cotton masks for distribution to students. And the Hope Coalition donated 84 individual packages of youth masks with 5 masks in a package. We received $10,000 from Red Wing Public Schools Foundation for K-6 personal physical education packs. Can you speak to what that is? The K-6 personal physical education packs?
Yeah, they're the they're PE packs, but I don't exactly know what's in each pack, so I can't answer that. It was there's a separate document that outlines it, but I don't have that with me. My apologies.
Okay. We received $2,803.71 from Goodhue County Health and Human Services for Workplace Wellness Initiative. $6,000 from Goodhue County Health and Human Services for Active Living in Schools Initiative. The Jones Family Foundation donated $46,710 for laptops for teachers at the high school.
And I will add that that's they actually made a $100,000 commitment. 46,000 is for the laptops, and then we're finalizing some of the other expenditures that we'll share at our next meeting.
Wow. Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation donated $20,000 for Jefferson School Technology. $1,000 from Dakota Electric Association for any needs related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture donated $5,000 under their Support Farm to School initiatives. Wakuta Firefly Fund, $10,000 for portable equipment for Jefferson School. $6,000 from the Red Wing Public Schools Foundation for the Sheldon Personal Music Partnership, and $10,052.83 from the Red Wing Public Schools Foundation for COVID-19 visual art personal art kits for K-6. Amazing and humbling.
Yeah, I will say if you're ever looking for an example of community support of a school district, this page is a partial descriptor of that. And it's not just the money, it's also the extra hours and other work that's being done behind the scenes. And we're so grateful for all of it.
Jeannie.
I just was going to add, I know there was a question about those personal PE packs kind of thing. And I want to say that this is absolute truth. So I'm sorry if it is wrong information. But maybe Jess knows, but I believe, just because the Y is involved, that the kids are getting their own like PE equipment, like so a jump rope and balls and different things. And local experts are leading, you know, certain art or PE activities virtually so that the kids have their own personal equipment or personal supplies that they need to do. So again, I hope that's right, but I just wanted to share that.
Carson, did you want me to talk about that?
Yes, please.
Yes, Janie, you're absolutely correct. That was the brainstormed in the meeting that we had with about 40 community members. This was one idea that came up along with that specialist website that we'll use. And Mick Wendland has been helping to also collect that information with the Sheldon. Jennifer Staley has been really instrumental in making sure that we connect those artists and with our kids, and she has been working tirelessly to get those artists to just to let them know what the project that we're doing is, and she has been working day and night, talk about those hours, to get those artists connected to our kids, along with our PE department is partnering with the YMCA and also talking with ELC to see what are those resources in our our community that we can utilize and really showcase what Red Wing can do. It's been just inspiring to see the community and our teachers come together to give these kids the specials experience that they deserve.
And maybe if I can add just onto that a little bit, like a lot of these people are people that have volunteered with Every Hand and Join and different things and that Jess has been involved with. So I kind of give a little clap to Jess, because these are all people that have been involved with Summer Blast and really kind of that community aspect. So it shows that when we have goals and we can meet them, like when these opportunities come up for other ways to help and work together, then those connections are already there, and it's that much easier to make these kind of initiatives happen. So thank you to all these people that are helping, because they've been helping with a lot of different things across the year. So it's really neat to see them continue these connections and work on more. So
our very deep thank you to each of those groups for the support that they continue to give to the Red Wing Public Schools.
Yeah, over 117,000 right there. Never mind the masks and the labor and all of that. So thank you. I'll make the motion then that we should accept the resolution document and all those donations as presented.
Mike will second.
Motion made by Heidi and seconded by Mike. Any other discussion? All right, we'll start the roll call vote with you, Mr. Bryant.
A big aye and a big thank you to everyone on that list and all the other ones that have donated in the past. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Christensen.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Fair.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. The resolution passes 7-0. Next on the agenda is the preliminary levy certification.
All right, good evening again, board members. You can see in your packet, we have some estimates for the preliminary levy for calendar year 2021, which will be school year 21-22. We are looking right now at a $594,000 decrease in our levy, about 5%. The reason for this decrease is the change in our enrollment projections. As we go down so many students, so does the amount of referendum aid and referendum levy and other levies that we are permissible to levy on our taxpayers, because they are all a per pupil levy. At this point, because there are still changes coming through the MDE system, I would ask that you certify the maximum levy, and we will then levy whatever MDE's latest calculation is as of October 1st. We do still have the opportunity to under levy when we approve the final levy in December. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I do, Jackie.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, thank you. Decrease 500,000. You're asking us to approve that number tonight?
No, I am asking you to approve the word maximum at this point.
Is there a dollar amount tied to maximum?
No, it is whatever the Department of Education has calculated on September 30th to go. Then it will go to the county auditors on October 1st.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I'll make the motion to accept the maximum levy.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Heidi. Any other further discussion? All All right, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Fair,
Aye.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
No.
and chair votes aye, so that passes 6-1. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the truth in taxation hearing, and Jackie, you're up again.
And I'm sorry about this. I made a typo on the actual truth in taxation notice. It should be December 7th at 6 p.m. That is what we approved in August, in August. The only change on this truth in taxation notice was some language I got from our attorney on how to switch it to a virtual event if at such time it is needed. And then just one question for the board. We discussed earlier that we might be holding.
We lost you, Jackie.
Yeah, I can't hear her.
I'll give her a call.
Okay. Cool.
Right in the middle.
It's that freezing frame that's happening. I was afraid of that. Oh, Jackie, are you back?
Can you hear me now? I got kicked out.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, we're
Okay.
here.
So I'm just going to start over because I don't know what you heard before I got kicked out. So there's a typo on the truth in taxation notice. It should be December 7th. The only change I am recommending is some language from our attorney on how to switch it to a virtual meeting. The other thing I don't know if you want to consider is earlier we discussed having in-person board meetings at Twin Bluff, as if I should change the location to Twin Bluff.
I would say that that would be prudent to, in that first line. I don't believe that we'll be able to, even if we do switch to in-person, it looks like it would not happen at the Red Wing High School. So I would change that to the Twin Bluff School.
Yep.
But if we are virtual, I like that second. That kills their, covers all the things that we might need to address. So really it's a language change. Arlen?
Thank you. One of the things I learned a long time ago on open meeting law is, first and foremost, when you post a public notice, you post it on the official bulletin board, and that is not mentioned in this recommendation.
We can add that.
So I think that needs to be added to it. I don't know if we need to reference bulletin board moving to the door of this high school, because I think that's already established, but we need to state that it will be published on the official bulletin board, in my opinion.
All right, noted.
Any other discussion?
I move that whole paragraph. Do you want me to read it?
Well, we made some changes.
With adding it to the big bulletin board. I
And
can read it if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Holly, and then just change Red Wing High School to Red Wing Twin Bluff Middle School or Twin Bluff School.
And then do you want me to add bulletin board?
Official.
Sure.
Okay. I gotta make it bigger. I move to conduct the school district's truth in taxation hearing on December 7th, 2020 at the Red Wing Twin Bluff, correct?
Yes.
At 6 p.m.
Yeah, Twin Bluff.
In the event that it is determined that this meeting must be held virtually due to ongoing concerns related to COVID-19 pandemic. Notice of the change to be virtual meeting will be posted on the school district website along with the bulletin board at the high school, the district office. The website is redwing.k12.mn.us and published in the Republican Eagle.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Heidi Jones.
Motion made by Holly, seconded by Heidi. Any other discussion? All right, we'll vote on that, starting with you, Mr. Derricks.
Where'd he go? There he is.
Mr. Derricks, you're muted.
Sorry, I got myself in the queue and then I forgot to mute. I'm making all kinds of mistakes here.
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to double check. Is December 7th the correct day? I was trying to remember.
Yes.
Yes,
We
it
were
is.
on the wrong day on the initial one, 7th. Okay, that's fine. So thank you. If you're voting, yes.
Janie Fair,
Aye.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Mr. Christensen, Mr. Christensen.
Sure.
Sure. And chair votes aye, so that passes 7-0. All right. Our final agenda item is future topics and upcoming meetings. Thank you, Lisa, for including those in our board packet. The next meeting that we do have is next Monday, where we will be meeting to go over, well, we'll have a workshop on our equity plan. Holly? Holly, you're in the queue?
Yep, sorry, I was talking to myself. Can you give us a little bit more information about what that will look like next week?
Sure. Go ahead. Carson, do you want to address that?
Yeah, we've had some very broad discussions internally about what we think should be components of the plan, or at least some of the components of the plan. So we want to talk about not only that, but then also the process, because we want to make sure that we include a lot of different people and a lot of different stakeholders as we develop the equity plan together. We will also be talking about the possibility of working with an outside consultant to help lead us through the process. And so we'll be discussing that possibility as well.
So that will be the discussion we'll be having next week, is about having a facilitator lead us through the process.
Yes, and then also just some broad discussions so that we can, take it to the next step. We have no assumption that this is a one meeting discussion topic. This is a critical topic that will take months and years, to fully process, but we want to get going on it.
So the board and then administrative team?
As far as who will be there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be inviting the administrative team to the meeting as well.
Okay, so there'll be some type of presentation.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to put the picture in my head. Sure.
One, I think as a board, it's also important for us to talk about what are our goals and vision for this, to really dig in. We've talked about it as long as I've been on the board. We've talked about the need for this, but we haven't really formalized a specific plan and how we're going to move forward with our ideas, our passion, and the need that we have in our district to make some changes. So it's bringing all of that together, maybe making some benchmarks and some goals all together, and figure out how we're going to accomplish and achieve those goals. So I think that's really important. Just a good starting point. It's certainly by no means one and done, but we definitely need to have these conversations. So that is next Monday. The personnel committee will be meeting in the next couple of weeks for a special meeting. I do know that we'll be getting negotiations with the custodial group. That'll be coming up. Our next school board meeting will be on Monday, October 5th at 6 p.m. There will be a personnel meeting just prior to that, in addition to operations. Any other meetings or upcoming events that we'd like to highlight?
What time is next week? 6?
6 o'clock. And we'll be meeting virtually right here. Anything else that anybody would like to highlight?
Pam, if I can, I think just on that idea of the equity workshop, I really hope the discussion can be centered and organized kind of around our strategic directions and our educational plan, because we have things in there that we've said we wanted to do and to work on. And so I kind of echo that we just need to make sure we have some goals, and then let's make sure it's linked to exactly what we're trying to do in our strategic plan, to our educational plan. So just wanted to add that.
Really good point. Anything else? All right, then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Mike.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Holly. Anybody have a discussion about that? Anyone? All right, Ms. Fair, you get to start.
Aye.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, 7-0 to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Monday, if not before.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Have a good night.
Good night.
Right.